I am not happy about this. Though I have an extra room in my house, I was not exactly counting on building a Xeno, especially some little purple jello mold with antennae. Seriously. I did find out a few things about their species as I was given a tour of their ship before we left the town green. First of all, they openly use quantum flux zero point energy, probably the only clean energy source in existence. Secondly, what they actually need, a type of suspended animation device when travel. Even though they do have an FTL system, it is still more practical to put one in stasis than letting them consume resources for the entire trip, even if the trip is only a few weeks. It's just more efficient when you think it through. Thirdly, is that they are reliant on AI. It's rare for them to actually fly manually, and when they do, they spread themselves through the consoles and use some sort of strange pressure sensor. It's almost as though their arms reach through and their legs reach through these tubes, and then they just kind of push on the buttons as they're going. Surprisingly, they still do actually use buttons and switches. Fourth, the inside of the ship was not set up for families. In fact, it was very, well, for lack of a better term, Spartan. As I would stop to examine one section, a very soft hand would reach up and get my attention. My new partner, as they would say, at least that's what the translation says, would always seem to pull me along, always in that feminine voice, which I found out was not really a voice, though it did use a mouth to accentuate the words. The sounds were actually vibrating throughout parts of their bodies, primarily through the section behind the lips itself. This vibration was emphasized through the mouth like organ, and this is what actually projected the sound forward, at least the vibrations. After leaving the ship, I asked about their form. Is that, does it change like the comic book characters? And the response was surprising. This here is their default form. Their bodies are gelatinous for sure, but they're actually closer to jellyfish, at least at what we can figure. You can squeeze and stretch a jellyfish, but it will always have that standard primary structure. The glomtic are fully malleable and won't explode like a jellyfish, yet they all have this default setting. They're a little bit more dense, but I don't know how else to explain it. As my head started to hurt, I decided not to push the issue, as it kind of seemed rude, as they didn't seem to want to answer it straightforward. I invited her, I guess, to come back to the house. Of course, that was after I cleared it with the town, of course. I really don't need the town crawling up my ass over dumb shit again. It's bad enough they do that on a regular basis, and now we got this unholy mess on us. When we arrived, I started showing her around just like any other person. It's not too much stuff out here. A couple of buildings and whatnot. Yet it's still more room out here in the country than it is for anyone else in the city. Those going back to apartments with the new partners are going to have it a little rough, as space is going to be a little difficult. She seemed to be interested in everything I showed her. Everything from the doorway, garage, the bathroom, everything. She looked and saw my computer sitting in the corner, and she thought it was cute. All I could think was, yeah, right, just what every man wants to hear, the word cute. Instead of getting angry, being that it was middle of summer, it was easy to just take her out for a walk and be outside the house for a while and show her the shed, some of the farm equipment around, the garden, and so on. And she seemed to be endlessly fascinated as she insisted on touching seemingly everything. I did have to warn her about touching the chickens, though, as they might not be very nice, especially that giant cock over there, who's just Well, he can be a real asshole, but it's nice to have him around to keep the raptors at bay. Eventually, I was getting hungry, and I was a little tossed at that point. I knew she didn't consume nourishment like I do, so I had to explain to her that it's actually very rude to not offer food when someone's visiting. She mentioned that it was very easy to get what she needed, what she wanted. When she reached for me, though, I stepped back. It was going to take me a long while to get used to what was coming. In particular, that night when I was watching the news, she asked me to remove my shirt. When I asked her why, she responded that she was hungry. At my age, I'm sure there was all sorts of things swimming around in my system that she could consume. Yet I wondered how she was going to get it out. I mean, you're not going to go inside or anything like that, are you? Was all I was thinking. To my delight, actually, all she needed was actual physical contact. I had no idea how it works, still don't, but somehow her body draws everything towards the surface where she absorbs it and then consumes it. This process is very slow and takes a few hours, especially if what the hell she's taking is stuck inside your liver or your bone marrow or something. But it's not painful at all. Hell, you don't even realize it's going on. While she ate, she mentioned how warm my human body is. When I asked her if it was unpleasant, she responded no, it was comforting. And all I could think of was, okay. As we talked, I found out that their bodies have a very limited range of tolerances and temperatures, which is why she enjoyed the body heat. They can only survive between 49 and 11 degrees Celsius. Anything beyond that causes damage, and prolonged exposure will kill them. All I can think of is great. And here we sit in the upper half of the northern hemisphere. Yeah, you sure picked a good place to land, didn't you? Later, when I was getting tired, my new roommate, I gave the name Cammy, wanted to eat while I was sleeping. I don't know why she wanted to, but she ended up having to look a little perturbed at the idea that she would sleep alone. Thankfully, her species actually sleeps as well. Although shockingly, by our 24-hour planetary rotation, she would only sleep 3 to 4 hours twice a day, not solid 8 hours like we do. It was weird, but seriously, I don't think I could sleep with her clinging to me like that. I caught her sleeping on the sofa the next day when I didn't know about her sleep schedule and freaked out, thinking that she had actually died on me. I breathed a big sigh of relief when she woke up, and I was glad she was alive, even more relieved that she didn't sleep by turning into a puddle of ooze like something from bad sci fi shows. She also enjoyed the showers, too. That was once I turned the water pressure down and got a different shower head. Their squishy bodies just don't handle any pressure at all. It's weird. And up until that moment, I also wondered if that was form fitting clothing or was she actually multicolored? She actually disrobed when I showed her how to use a shower. And it turned out it was a type of clothing that just, well, she oozed into it like it's some sort of strange bodysuit. I wonder if they have to wash it on delicate or what. If they wash it, is it alive? What the hell is that? Honestly, it weirds me out at the touch. It even weirds me out when I look at it. 2 days after Cammy arrived at my house, there was a knock on the door, several large knocks. A few men in suits were at the front. Strapping on my pistol into its holster, I answered it. After introducing themselves, they asked to come in, and when I denied them, they insisted. They did not like it when I suddenly slammed the door in their face and put on the deadbolt. As they started pounding on the door, I had my phone in my hand and my pistol in the other as I spoke through the door camera. It took a few minutes before they admitted that the agency they worked for, though I honestly didn't believe that for a moment. But I humored them. Through gritted teeth, they talked about how they wanted my new partner to head to a certain hospital to pull some toxins out of certain people. After telling them I would talk to Kimmy about it, those four idiots just kind of stood there on my porch, waiting. Well, at least until I told them in no certain terms to go away. They didn't believe me until I told them I'd just shoot through the door. Then they got the message. After they left, I talked to Cammy and we fully understood the situation. So the next day, I drove her down and we showed up at the VA hospital, which was the closest one I could think of. The old soldiers and sailors were very hesitant, to say the least, to touch Cammy, but when I showed them that it was safe, they began to allow her to do, well, what she does. Sticking close to their emergency room, Cammy removed the flu, pneumonia, and other issues from those walking in, and they were very grateful. I got some shit from security guards about letting this, as they say, thing treat people. That's until the old soldiers and Marines spoke up, and let's just say they didn't exactly use church language. After that long day on the drive back, Cammy slept hard in the passenger seat as she had that look on her face. You know that look from someone who just finished their fifth helping of Thanksgiving supper and is just god asleep, but they're totally satisfied with their meal? She did kind of look cute, all curled up in the passenger seat. Well, that's until the other vehicles showed up. I noticed them, but I didn't do anything right away. Maybe I should have, but they surrounded me and tried to push me off the road. They tried to frighten me into stopping, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I've gone through the training. I know what they're going to do. And you fight like hell against this sort of thing. And besides, they didn't realize something. You don't live this long without learning a few tricks. Pulling hard to the side, I slammed on my brakes, making them pass before they hit their brakes. Then, dropping a gear, I moved to the other side of the road and gearing up the RPMs as high as I could, I started power shifting until I got all the way through. It wasn't long before I'm easily pushing 100 miles an hour, and once I was clear of them and I didn't have to worry about crashing into anyone else, I reached for my phone and called 911. The moment the call connected, those vehicles immediately backed away in my rearview mirror. And here I thought the Xenos were dangerous, or better yet, and here I thought insurance salesmen were pushy. After calling 911 and letting them know that a bunch of vehicles were trying to push everybody off the roads, I began to call family. And when I got back to the house, that's where family and friends waited. Some of them stayed as I told them what happened, and Cammy spent a lot of time with each of the family, talking and showing them how she consumes things from the body. She didn't want to eat anymore, but she did force herself, and I realized, well, you could say I knew it was too much, as she started actually turning yellow. I guess that's their idea of looking sickly, or would we turn green? With the advice of my friends, I would end up calling the local news for an interview later, and that actually calmed things down. Especially since once Cammy was feeling better, we were talking about a road trip to the local children's hospital. And when I say local, unfortunately that means on the other side of the state. And once that went out and it was a live interview, no one was going to have an argument with that. And since we were now out in the open, they weren't going to try anything that stupid. It's been 7 months since the Goltnik arrived, and a lot of things have happened. New technologies have been coming out really, really fast. It's almost as though they were waiting for them to show up so they could release this technology. The world has begun to calm down and deal with the fact that we have aliens living among us. Also, well, winter is here, meaning that the Goltnik they don't go out much, and they really, really don't like the cold. Unfortunately, on the other end, that means I have to go deal with the fire because they don't do good with high temperatures either. So I gotta go to the firebox and I gotta stoke that son of a bitch every few hours. You know what? It still saves me a whole bunch of money on my heating bill, so I don't mind it too much. I can understand why they don't like the cold, though. Their version of frostbite is just as bad as ours, but it's just so much easier for them to get. It was around this time, as I was reviewing some of the pictures and video people have been taking since they showed up, I noticed something. The Golmtic seemed to slowly change and adapt to looking, well, kind of like us. Cammy even looks more human. She's even started to get curves. I mean, this is just odd since they don't require such thing to attract mates or have offspring. Most everybody speculates the reason why, but we honestly don't know as nothing's been confirmed. Later today, we're going to be meeting with others that have Glomtics in their homes, and I can't wait because seriously, I want to see what's going on. Arriving, I noticed that many of the Glomtics have gained a bit of mass. It's strange. Even the young ones seem to be more than just a semi transparent cylinder with legs and antennae. It was interesting to see, and it seems like everybody noticed this, but no one really cared. It didn't bother them at all. During the meeting, we got a briefing on how the rest of the world is dealing with our new friends. Well, the answer to that goes from region to region, culture to culture, and all across the planet. But that is a whole different story altogether. It got so bad that many were just saying, I'm done, get on to the next subject. The next subject was about the combined forces of humanity's plan to free our new friends, the ones that were left behind by their oppressors. Also, the protection of our own planet. We knew that if there was more than one race out there, more than one species, and we were not friends with them, that makes them potential enemies. So they need to worry. On top of that, using Galactic tech, we're going to be getting further exploration. Luna has already got a few small colonies on it, and they're already looking towards Mars and seeing what they can do about Venus. And the list of everything else that goes with that just kept going. Eventually, the meeting finally ended. Most of us were just done to be done with the formalities. And after the meetings, the drinks, well, they always begin to flow. A few partners begin to talk about how the Glomtics are. One drunk idiot put his arm around my neck for no reason. I almost punched him in the face when he did that. And as he did, raising the hand with the glass in it, he pointed over towards Cammy and said, "You sure that one looks like a lot of fun. Seriously, look at her. You mind if she cleanses me tonight?" I shot him a look of sheer disgust and then shook his arm off my neck. "Oh, don't be like that, dude. Hey, how about a trade?" He then waves over another Glomtic. The little thing walks over, and she's I don't want to say a deep shade of red, but she wasn't completely transparent. But she does have a kind of pink hue around her as she looked up at me. I knew this. This was their version of blushing. All I could say was, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I then walked away, grabbed Cammy by the hand, and we left. As we left, I noticed all the Glomtics hanging on to their partners. I mean, hanging on. Arms around the necks, all wrapped around the arms. If the guy was wearing shorts, her leg was wrapped around. I'm like, yeesh, guys, what the hell? I know the Glomtics wanted something similar to marrying into a family. Kind of like how kings used to make peace back in the day. But those are Xenos, man. What the hell are you thinking? You know the phrase, don't stick your dick in crazy? Well, don't stick your dick in Xeno. Cammy didn't know what was wrong. I had to assure her that it was nothing that she did, but someone had just annoyed the hell out of me and just kind of ruined my entire night. She offered to clear out my system of any extra adrenaline or something like that. And especially if it was some sort of invasive issue, she could easily get it out through my skin. I dismissed this as I knew she was full anyway. I knew this because we had just got back that day from visiting another hospital. We've been visiting hospitals, a hospice or two, some clinics, even a couple school nurses' office, anywhere. And we just been going there every couple of days, 2, 3 days for the past 4 months. I knew she couldn't possibly be hungry. Not to mention, I looked at her purple form and she just had the slightest tinge of green. So, yeah, I'm not going to have her do her version of puking, especially not in the car, man. Not in the car. When we got back to the house, I just wanted to sleep after all that shit. Cammy understood, and she wanted to sit there and watch TV while I headed to the bedroom. I might have been tired from all the excitement over the past day, but seriously, I just wanted some sleep. But I'll tell you what, if I knew what was right around the corner, I wouldn't have been able to sleep for a week.